at the end. But we do notice that there are a lot of people here tonight that weren't here last week. So what we'd like to do is extend this hearing of the public, maybe before we get into a discussion of the marijuana, whether we'll opt in or not. So we'd like to give the people that are here tonight that weren't here last week, that are residents of the city, to express their opinion, if they want. So, with that, do we have anyone who'd like to be heard? Over there, please. And you have 3 minutes, and we'll tell you when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Jean Quast. I've been a resident in this city for 50 years. I live on Oakwood Street. I really feel at this particular time we should opt out with regard to marijuana. I can see it for health reasons. Last week we were told there were 62 places between Kelly here, all going up and down 8 Mile to Grand River. We also have other things going on in our city. Our city is very small. We are residentially tax-based. We don't have big industry here to offset this stuff. We don't have senior citizens. We go to Roseville now for that. We're paying for our police, fire, and also our ambulances, our street lighting. We're contributing to the DIA. How many more pieces of the pie are going to be cut out? You have 11 properties that you were talked about last week. How long do you extend these people time? Do you not have a time limit that it can go for so many years before these things have to pay? Because that's money that is not coming into the coffers here, plus they're using water. If they need fire assistance or medical, those resources are being used also. So the people that are contributing, it makes a hardship for them. I'd hate to see people move out of here because we can't pay for these services. And that's exactly what we're doing. That's all I have to say, but I do think we should opt out at this time and see what happens as things progress. Everybody tells you it's going to be just great. The money it's going to bring in, pish-tosh. I don't think that'll happen. It isn't all peaches and cream, people. We live in the here and now, and there's a lot of stuff going on. We really need to be responsible, and we need to be proactive for our citizens and for our community. Thank you.
Jean, just for the record, can you say your first and your last name again, please?
Jean Quast. It's Q-U-A-S-T. I live on Oakwood Street.
Thank you.
50 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I hope to stay there.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? John, Mr. DeHunt.
John DeHunt, Phlox Avenue. Family's been here since the beginning of time. You all received my email, so I think my position is abundantly clear. It's amazing the power that marijuana has. Can you imagine what this would be like if there was no discussion of marijuana? There would just be the usual suspects. This past meeting of the Planning Commission, modest agenda, but yet we're inundated with marijuana topics, and they're not even coming before our commission. I am not here to argue the rights and the wrongs of marijuana. It passed, it's the will of the people. But the will of the people in the city of East Point, 67, as we were told, 67% of the voting people in East Point voted to accept recreational marijuana. They did, however, not say blanketly, we want all these stores. We want recreational stores in our community. That did not say anything. It just said, I want to be able to smoke a joint on my porch. That's what it said. No more. We look at the businesses in our community right now, and we have a $1 million complex going up in Foot Locker. We have little mom and pop stores popping up all over the place. We are trying to be more than what we are. I just drove from French Road to the City Hall and found 6 locations in Detroit. Don't you find it interesting that the city of Detroit has pushed these people out into the periphery of the city? They're not downtown. Find a marijuana establishment, whether it's recreational or medical, anything. There's nothing downtown. We're in the middle of a master plan. We're trying to put a business district together. You know, if I were a business owner, I don't know if I'd want to have to worry about smells wafting down the street from a store. I understand that this is a big business. I understand that people have got this thing nailed down. We've got Colorado doing this, and we've got this state doing that, and we have all these studies and all this great stuff. We've got attorneys coming at us saying how they can make things wonderful, make it really good, make it good for the city of East Point. It's about money for them. Billable hours, selling businesses, selling real estate. We live here every day. We drive our streets every
30
day.
seconds.
So I have no problem with medical. I think we need to wait. I'm not going to say opt out, but I think we need to stop, smell the roses, see what other like communities do, like demographic, and then let's make an artful decision later on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Jakubiec?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. My name is Walt Jakubiec, East Point resident. I voted no on it, only because we have absolutely no experience and nothing to look at. If you decide to opt in on this, I wish you would only let one store come in and then let it sit there for a while and see what happens. And I'd like to have it reasonably close to the police department. Other than that, you can do what you want. Now, you've told us on the Planning Commission that we have to write the ordinance, and I plan on making it very strict. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Hello, Mayor, City Council. My name is Dr. Shaniva Early, and I'm one of your school board trustees. I am here because I want to know, how is somebody else able to tell us what is good for us? Why is it necessary that somebody comes tell us we can make all this money, our city is going to thrive, our tax base is going to be great? There is always another side to the story. How come we can't hear the other side? I've been to Colorado. I understand things that are going on there. I am part of the Community Actions Coalition for Prevention of Marijuana, Alcohol, Drugs in our school, all of that type of thing. Everybody tells us about the good news and what it's going to be. Oh, it's going to be fabulous and you're going to love it. There's nothing wrong with somebody making a decision to smoke, drink, whatever in their own house. But if you have to bring it to a city, everybody have to get on board somewhere. Everybody is not going to enjoy it. Everybody is not going to agree. Everybody's not going to be happy because we have marijuana or whatever it is in our city. But you have to tell everybody both sides of the story and not the fluff side that you want them to hear. Because if you want to sit and smoke in your house, I'm good with that as long as you're not smoking in my house. But you have to give everybody the point that it may be good revenue or it may be good tax base, but you might have to deal with people coming in here stealing from those organizations or breaking into people's houses because now they want to get high and they money. So you need to tell everybody both sides of the story, because all money is not good money. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sterling. Mr.
Jeffrey Lubeck, East Point resident. I just want to make a couple of comments. One, we've heard a lot of the 67% vote. I can probably get something on the ballot and get a 97% plus approval. And that's for my vice, bacon. Now, I'm sure everybody loves bacon, but does that mean they want a pig farm in their neighborhood? Or they want a slaughterhouse in their neighborhood? Willing to bet if that was spelled out, that number would be a lot different in the vote. And the other thing is, we just got done seeing an audit. You remember the great promises of the revenue from Proposal A, state revenue sharing? Look at the audit reports in front of you. How did that work out?
Thank you, Mr. Lubick. Mr. Baker.
I'm Rob Baker, East Point resident.
You might have to stretch out that microphone, sir.
I had to hold it on. I'm Rob Baker, East Point resident. I too am in agreement with those opposed to having the dispensaries here in our city. I have children that attend the schools here. Growing up in the inner cities, seeing the effects of drugs and the things that it pushes people to do, I believe that it's going to do us a disservice. I believe that also with talking with the coalition and also with police officers and things of that nature, I believe that it's wrong for us to have it. I believe that it's going to put our law enforcement in a position to where they're going to have to be stretched thin, and I don't believe that that's fair to those that live here. I understand the revenue, just like Dr. Early said, but all money isn't good money. There's other ways you can make money. You can sell harder drugs and make money. You can make a lot more, but does that mean that we should do it? And I'm in disagreement with bringing those dispensaries here. You can drive down 8 Mile from Kelly Road all the way down to DeQuinder, and you can count on, I mean, you don't have enough hands, enough fingers to count all the dispensaries that are there. But I do agree, just like the other gentleman stated, there's a reason those are pushed out like they are on the outskirts of the city. And I don't think it's right that we should have to smell this stuff, the scents coming from these dispensaries, and I don't believe that we need them here. I think that it's going to make it accessible to children. I've seen kids when I was in high school who had accessibility to drugs. And if you bring the dispensaries here, you're going to have, whether it's older cousins, friends, or whoever, that'll also help provide these drugs to minors. And I don't think that's right. And I think it's putting them in a position that they don't need to be in. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Creech, I saw your hand first.
Madam Mayor, Council, residents of East Point. All these matters and all are made. Excuse me. Marijuana's been around for a long time. Anybody who wants it or needs it can buy it anywhere they want it. It's not that you're going to hide it. And as I said, for medical and for recreational. But the same thing about it, as we pass this, now I'm thinking the same thing about it. If you can smoke in your house, you can raise X amount of plants in your house. Don't we have enough break-ins before somebody finds out what you're doing in your house? When you leave, I mean, there again, too, crime is crime. If they know you have it and they want it, they're going to come and get it. And it's just easy as it is. Crime is crime. I mean, that's the same thing about it. Why does somebody put a lock on their house? To keep honest people honest? No, that doesn't do that. And that's exactly what this is going to do. Now that they've made a law, and 67% has passed, which is great, then there again, too, there's all the places up and down 8 Mile Road. If you want it, it's there. It's not that hard to get. We don't need these dispensaries in our city in order to make it right. Because, the taxes for the roads, the taxes for the schools, the taxes for this, we haven't got it yet, and we're still not going to get it. All this is going to do is create a bigger problem. We're going to have more police to police it, more places to take care of it. Walt made it, said, if we even have one, if you have a dispensary, please get it to where it is. If you give out 5 or 6 of the rest of this stuff, the kids are going to know it's there. You're not saying that people are going to move out here now, because that's what we want them to do, is to move away from it. Move here because we don't have it, not because we have it. I suggest, as I say, you think about a lot of things. I suggest you opt out of it.
Thank you. Over here. Pastor Rush.
Pastor Rush, pastor of East Point Emmanuel United Methodist Church and 6-year resident of East Point. We had a discussion at our church this past Sunday, and the approximate, which representing 200 members, majority living in the East Point community, they wanted me to come and speak on behalf of the church that East Point is considered a family town. And by that means that families have the opportunity to grow and prosper. One of the things that's very concerning is that it is legal, no problem. We all want to follow all the laws. But the bigger issue is the access and the availability to children. Yes, children can do whatever they want. My son is not supposed to listen to rap music. He never listens to it in the car with me, but he knows every song and every lyric from every rap song that ever came out. However, he doesn't listen to it with me, and it's not right next to him. Matter of fact, at our last drug coalition meeting, the Police Chief Kaiser mentioned that we just did spot checks of all the businesses with liquor licenses in East Point, and 30% of them failed in selling alcohol to minors. I can walk down the street and there's beer and alcohol at every single gas station in the area. I think it's proliferation way too much. Now, if 30% of the businesses that are doing something with alcohol is selling it to minors, what about when we get the marijuana dispensaries? If that's just a sample setting, do we want minors having access to marijuana here in East Point? Do we want to be known as the pot city? If you're in Macomb County, you come to East Point and get high, just like everybody's going to Colorado for that. I believe we need to opt out so people will continue to move into East Point and become a family town. And representing 200 members of East Point Emmanuel United Methodist Church, they all believe in the same, that we should do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There's someone over here, please.
Hi, is this good? My name is Michael Bolka. I'm new. I've been in East Point for less than a year. But I am on the Facebook group, so if you know me, you can put a face to the post. That seems that's disgusting. But you can put a face on the post. If you see me out live, say hi, I'm friendly. Relevant to today, I'm not a medical user, and in spite of having gone to art school, I've never been a recreational user, but I am an advocate for all the reasons that you already know. But I think that there was, I came here to talk about different facility placements and things like that, but I think that that the obvious concern is the placement of dispensaries or retail outlets or pot shops or whatever we're going to call them. And people are saying, oh yeah, bring them in. The people that don't oppose them entirely are saying, yeah, bring them in for the revenue, but keep them down on 8 Mile. With the implication of, well, that's where those people are anyway, and I don't want those people in my neighborhood. And no. I mean, that's just, no. I think it might be a good idea to have maybe medical and recreational facilities separate, just because the different clientele may be more comfortable with a different retail environment. But honestly, I want to see boutiques for bud and edibles and oils. And I want to see one across the street here on Gratiot. And I want to see one, a mile down 9 in the middle of all the fast food shops. And this is just, I did a Google search and found like 12.5 bars in East Point, and about the same number of liquor retail. And that doesn't include all the gas stations and drugstores and grocery stores. And I don't see drunks on the street. I don't see drunks having fights in the alleys. We don't have alleys.
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think just bring it. I think bring it in, make it normal, make it respectable. It doesn't have to be the neon and glass block from 8 Mile. The city can control the facades of the buildings. And, you know, like they say, 5 drunks will start a fight, 5 stoners will start a band.
And your time is up, sir. And thank you for coming forward. All right, Ms. Reed, we heard from you last week, but there's a couple of people, is it Mr. Freeman? Reverend Freeman.
Madam Mayor, to the council, to everyone that's here, on behalf of the church that I'm blessed to pastor, which is First Baptist Church of East Point, our PACE group, which is Police and Community for Equality, as well as being part of the Joy Coalition. Some of our concerns are just because our city is so small, the dispensaries, there was a report that was just done by Ascension Medical Centers that were talking about, I found it interesting that this report came out after the vote, but they were saying how it's been proven that secondhand marijuana smoke will affect young people as well as our children. So with our city being as small as it is, there's just some concern on our part, and our church is also, like Pastor Rush's at First Baptist Church of East Point, we've been discussing this every Sunday. And there's some concerns on behalf of that, of what this would do from a perceptional standpoint with our city, but also from the criminal standpoint, being the chaplain at East Point Police Department. I know how busy our guys are. And of course, I can't speak for the police department as a whole, but just looking at it from an existential sense, the criminality of some of this stuff that has taken place in some of the other cities. And I'm not here to infringe on anybody's rights personally, as someone once said, but it's just from a city standpoint, I think we have to be careful about the perception and things such as that we're looking at. We have a lot of seniors here, a lot of churches here that are concerned with this. So just wanted to share that, my opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I saw one other person that didn't speak last week. 2 other. Would you come forward, please, and state your name?
Excuse my voice, but it's a little hoarse. My name is Miss Willie Twyman, and I am a member of Pastor James.
Maybe you can get closer to the microphone?
I just don't want nobody to feel, if they come up here, I don't have a cold or flu, so I don't want you to feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
But I am a Christian, and my concern is the effect of it. If people can't handle alcohol, how are they going to mix a hallucinogen and alcohol and drive on our streets and think it's going to be okay? I don't think it's going to be beneficial. It's a long-term problem for us to say it's okay for everybody to set up these dispensaries and help out. But it's not going to benefit our community at all. It's going to make the community go down real fast because, like, the crime is going to go up, and then the people's sense of even just any worth for themselves as far as a human. This is a this is a long-term problem that is not going to be a solution. Everybody's celebrating Christ and Christmas, but they're not attending services to bring our community back. The whole foundation fell apart when they took prayer out of school. They took the rights to even say, I'm a Christian. We need to bring our community back into a sense of trusting God to bring us back to where we need to be and not try to do something in a substitute by thinking this is going to be beneficial. It's not. Drugs has never been beneficial for anyone. It's just an introduction into a long-term problem. It's not going to help us at all. And I'm a resident of East Point.
Thank you, ma'am. Someone else that wasn't here last week? Mrs. Peak, I saw your hand.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Shirley Peak. I've been in the city for 69 years. Every time we've had a public millage, I supported it wholeheartedly. got petitions to sign for it, voted for it every time because I thought that was the right thing to do. I know we're going to have more problems if we get this here, and it's going to be more work and harder for our police and fire. We voted these millages in to take care of our city as a whole, not to have all this added burden on to them. I don't think it's right. And has anybody thought about federal funds coming in for us? We don't get much, but if we ever had a chance to get them, we would not get them. Thank you.
I saw another hand in the back, sir. And please state your name.
Gary Myron, East Point resident. I think opting out for now was good. Forgot what I was going to say. The revenue, I don't think you're going to get a lot of revenue since the state is mentioning that you could grow your own, and I think a lot of people are going to grow their own, and instead of paying the 16% tax, they have that. I was in Vermont 6 months ago. They just went through it. Yes, they can't sell it, but they do sell it in a different way. They sell other items and they get it for free. So I don't think really you're going to get a lot of revenue. And you should probably check the businesses around, because maybe they don't want it around, their businesses. Medicals, it's good for people. I've seen since I've been here. But I think an opt-out for right now is a good thing to see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who did not speak last week who is an East Point resident?
Nick Shortino, local business owner. I've got 3 18-year-old boys, and one of them acquired a vapor, whatever that, those oils. And I wanted to blame where he bought it from. I wanted to go there and say, he's a minor, why are you selling this to this kid? But it's really not their fault. It was more of a parent. It is my responsibility to parent my child. So he went through that, and he stopped. For whatever reason, he tried it. And I think it's going to be pretty much the same thing with marijuana. Kids are going to try it, and kids who are going to have problems with it are going to stay with it, having problems with it, and it's really not going to affect it either way. Whether it's here or not, it's really not going to make a difference. So, I'm for it. If it helps business in the community and we can work together as a community, then I'm all for it. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I see some faces out there that have not spoke tonight. I'm not sure whether you're a resident or not. No? All right, anyone else? All right, then let's close that hearing of the public. But you spoke last week. Did you want to say the same thing again this week? All right.
My name is Carol Reed. I'm born and raised in this city. I've been here for 71 years. I'd like to say the word fear, false evidence appearing real, is very prevalent right now. There's 300,000 people in Michigan that have their medical marijuana license, and marijuana has been around a long time. I prefer the word cannabis because that's the medical term, but since 1937, when Anslinger went on his rampage about marijuana, they put the slang term on it to give it a very bad reputation, and it was all false. And now, being that we have done all the footwork to get it legal in Michigan, Big Pharma is jumping on this like crazy because it cures cancer, it cures autism, it helps with diabetes, it helps with epilepsy, and now Big Pharma wants to jump on it and make pills so that you can all become drug addicts from Big Pharma. Big Pharma is the biggest drug pusher on the planet, and I'm talking about the whole planet. You never get better. You just keep going back to the doctor for more and more drugs. They brought us the opioid epidemic. They put everybody on heroin, and now we're fighting for the right to have cannabis as medicine. Jesus Christ used cannabis for his anointing oil. When you look in your history, it's actually in church windows. And in my lifetime in East Point, there was a time when they weren't going to let any people with a dark complexion in this city because they were so fearful. And now look at this. I'm just shaking right now at the hypocrisy of the falsehoods that have come out. You cannot go outside of a dispensary and light up a joint. It's illegal. The people that are responsible, like me, do not do that. I would not have a dispensary near a school. I would have it on Kelly Road over by 8 Mile. Serve the people that need it. I'm one of the people that need it. I don't want to go into Detroit. It's not going to bring you in a lot of money, but it's also going to say something like, take a little bit of care of somebody like me. Listen to the work that I've done for the past 53 years to prove this plant that God put on this planet for us to use for our health is a good
30 seconds,
thing.
please.
And I'm sorry, I'm so upset right now. But really, you have to realize that when the car came in, horses went to the side. And now we've got cannabis coming in as a valid medicine. It's helping a lot of people. It's curing cancer. It's doing good. And you know what? If people are bad poster children, arrest them and throw them in jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Shay, you spoke last week as well. I'm sorry?
My name is Shay. I'm an East Point resident. I also represent a local East Point business, and I work for a cannabis firm. We do consulting. Have any of you guys ever been to a processing facility before? No. I had the pleasure of visiting one. I hear a lot of concerns about added police and things like that. They have their own security. Outside of the building, it looks like nothing. It looks like a industrial building, and there is no smell. So when it's done correctly, it's ventilated correctly, they have the security they're supposed to. It doesn't add any danger. There's a lot of different kinds of licensing that we can have. We don't have to have dispensaries or provisioning centers, as the correct term is. There's money left on the table. There's a lot of other things I hear people talking about, and I'm not going to go into that, but I do want to say that a processing facility, you wouldn't know it's there. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't know it's there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's move on to discussion on marijuana regulations or what the council would like to talk about related to this subject.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think first I was going to say I don't think we could have prevented anyone from speaking even if they were not a resident, if I'm not mistaken, for having a public hearing.
You want to hear the same people that spoke last week?
Well, I mean, if someone has something new to say or
No.
came out tonight, I mean,
All
I
right,
just don't
then.
want anyone to have come out and not had a chance to speak.
All right. It's fine with me if it's fine with council.
I support that.
Who would like to speak?
And if it's no one, that's fine too.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the discussion. I think we're addressing two topics. The one is medical marijuana, which is completely different than how you would confront with the recreational marijuana, because the recreational marijuana, as you know, is still so much work to be done at the state level, and there's still so many unknowns. So I think for the benefit of maybe just in first part of this discussion, that we just talk about medical marijuana. That's all right with you.
So the first thing I wanted to ask Rich, So I know that we have to, if we do something that looks like zoning, go through planning.
That's correct.
And because the ordinance would likely have a lot of different parts to it, can that aspect be delegate? Because I'm thinking of things like a lot of ordinances have requirements for how much they have in like capital assets or something, you know, like in bond requirements, and that doesn't seem like planning issues to me. What do you think?
I think it should start with planning with regard to the signage that's going to be allowed, hours of operation. I know with regard to recreational marijuana that the only thing it really addresses is that any type of facility cannot be within 1,000 feet of a school. That really is the only thing, and then of course it says that a municipality may regulate the hours that the facility is open, and may also regulate the type of signage that is used at a particular facility, and that's really it. That's with regard to recreational marijuana.
So I would, I guess my preference for how we would handle this, because I think it's going to involve a lot of work study sessions, maybe in the next part of the year, is to ask our city attorney to come up with multiple ordinances. I spoke with the mayor of Mount Clemens, and Mount Clemens has recently opted in for medical marijuana. They're opting out for recreational marijuana because that is such an undefined and unclear situation currently. With the medical marijuana, what they did initially was to ask their city attorney to come up with multiple ordinances, to review the ordinances related to it at a work study session with the city council and with planning and with administration. From there, they then gave additional work out to the planning commission to come up with issues related to location, zoning, and all those other things. And then they also went back to administration and asked administration at the same time to come forward with different things related to building. If you grow it in your basement, what kind of protection do you have to have related to ventilation and heating and so forth? And then they came back, and she was saying that it took almost 6 months for them to get to a certain point. But it was the planning commission that came up with saying they were recommending 1 or 2 facilities, where would they be? And they looked at all the different things, as an example, cultivators or the growers. Is there a place that you could establish growing? Shay talked about processing. Is there a place for processing, for testing facilities, for transporters, for retail stores, or for micro business? But all those things have to be considered if you opt in or opt out. And you don't have to opt in with all of them. You can pick and choose what you think is going to be appropriate for a city our size. So Mount Clemens opted in for medical marijuana with 2 locations, and they did cultivators as well. And the 2 locations are, and then they came up with the regulations for how would you obtain a license within your city for a location, and what did your location have to be, where did it have to be, and all those things. So it's not like just opting in and saying you're going to do it right now. It's, you have to really do an analysis of all these things that are going to affect all your residents. As an example, people were talking about putting a place. Last week they were saying, put a place on Kelly Road. Well, you have residential right behind Kelly Road. So you're going to allow 500 feet, 1,000 feet behind a location? If you're going to put it on 8 Mile Road, you're going to put it on 10 Mile Road. If you're going to do growing, does it have to be in an industrial area? And where do we have located? What do we have in an industrial area? And if you're going to do a store, where do you want it? And you have to come up with guidelines related to schools, churches, and residential. So I think all those things, and I think it starts with directing your attorney to come up with multiple ordinances and bringing it back to see whether that's the way we want to go.
Yeah, with what you said, Madam Mayor, I agree. I kind of agree with what Mount Clemens is doing, actually. I do believe we should start with medical marijuana and maybe opening a couple of medical marijuana bases before we look at recreational marijuana at this time, just to see how it goes with the medical marijuana before we actually jump in with both feet. So I actually have been following a little bit with what's going on in Mount Clemens also, and I agree that I think that's the way I would like to approach this also.
So is that, I think, sounds like a good idea too, to discuss just medical marijuana facilities
Right.
at this time. Of course, recreational is legal for anyone personally, and then the business would be down the road probably a year if this, the state's probably gonna take their full 12 months.
So my suggestion is, you always like to, if somebody's done a lot of work on it, it's always nice if you can get their work and find out what's good and what you like and what you don't like. So I did get the ordinance that they have, and I did forward it on to Rich, because I think you have a number of ordinances, and maybe council at some time could look at all of them and pick and choose. But they also worked out all the administrative details, and they're approving it next week on Tuesday. And so she said she'd be glad to share those things with us, so that maybe we could have a work study session in January and then talk about it at that particular time. So I don't think you'd have to necessarily say that you're gonna opt in or opt out. And we do have an opt-out resolution currently, is that right, Michael? Previously?
Rich spoke about it. Oh, I know I think from Macro or something, we were provided with one a year ago.
And we do have a couple ordinances. We do have the ordinance from Centerline, and I understand that Warren just opted in this week, is that correct? So I think that there would be a number of ordinances that we could get and review, but I would prefer that we come back in January and maybe have a work study session in between council meetings in January. Miss Monique Owens, you've been really quiet.
Well, I've spoke at several meetings about, I know we're talking about the medical marijuana, but, I'm against the recreational due to the Schedule I in the federal level. And, a lot of residents don't know that you have over their amount, it can get seized and people can go to jail and things like that. People can lose their jobs. So I'm with the citizens who voted yes and things like that, because it's your right when you vote on what you do at your own house. But when it affects people, their jobs, their health, and the community, it affects me. And so, so the recreational, I'm surprised Mount Clemens didn't vote yes, because if it's a big business and makes a lot of money, I'm surprised they didn't vote yes in it, because their downtown for many years has been dead. And so for them to vote no on it, they must see that it's not going to really help them.
No, their goal was to opt in on medical marijuana,
Right.
establish 2 places,
Okay.
work out the kinks of the administration of the 2 areas, and then, but to opt out on the recreational marijuana at this time. But they took about 6 months to really study it and look at it, because they wanted to be sure that the purpose was such that it would still maintain the integrity of the city and so forth. They have that great big huge area that used to over there by Gibraltar, and so they're going to be utilizing that as a cultivating area. But they have a lot of rules, and they have people making applications, and of course all the applications for the medical marijuana go to the state, and the state does the background check. And I believe, Mr. Rua, doesn't the Michigan State Police, as part of the medical marijuana, they're the ones that are controlling and doing a great deal of the enforcement?
Yes, they would be doing the inspections.
They do the inspections. I know they've closed a couple of places down in Centerline.
That's correct.
And I think they closed a number of the places down on 8 Mile Road as well.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, if you allow me to speak again, I talked to City Councilman Scott Benson, who is close to this district in the city of Detroit. And as you know, it's a lot of medical marijuanas in the city of Detroit, like you guys said, on 8 Mile. And he said that was one of the worst decisions that Detroit made. And so he was going to speak last meeting, and I apologize, I didn't get him to come today, but for a city that has allowed over 100 in their city, and to say it's not a good idea, and that's a big city, they have industrial, to bring it to a small city, I don't think it's a good idea, but I'll go with whatever council agrees to make, you know, those
So
accommodations.
what I would like is for council to consider doing a work study session. By that time, we should have the ordinances from Rich and review those. We might have the additional administrative guidelines that Mount Clemens is utilizing.
Are you suggesting we do the work study session with planning also?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Well, I think no matter what, it's going to have to go to the planning
Right,
commission.
so I'd rather, that's why I was actually asking, because I would like them to be involved in that work study planning also.
Does it make sense for us to keep looking at it and to refer to planning, so we're both, I mean, Rich is the same attorney that's at both those meetings, so I kind of feel like we can have those discussions at the same time.
And I've talked it over with Laura too. She knows that this is going to be something that is, you know, at the top of the agenda for 2019.
For January, for
Just-
planning.
Yeah. She knows it's coming.
It would depend on what they might have on the agenda. I saw Mary back there.
She's gone.
But if they didn't have anything else, maybe we could do a joint meeting for the regular planning commission meeting that time.
Yeah, for January 3rd. Looks like it should be the 3rd, right, unless it was
What day is the
moved.
3rd?
Thursday.
Thursday, first Thursday of the year.
I don't
Oh,
believe it
that's-
has been moved.
How long has, maybe I can address this to the city manager, has medical marijuana been allowed? Because I want to know why council has decided to do it now and not, it's been done for a while. That's why I
I
wanna
think it
ask
was
the question.
just, I think it was just the pressure. Michael, it was 2 years ago, was it not, that we developed,
I think it was not having a city manager and having the stress of that and not a permanent public safety. For me, there was too many balls in the air to tackle something like this.
I think the licensing of medical marijuana by local agencies has been around for at least 4, if not more years. I'm looking to the audience. 5, 6, 4? Okay, 4 years.
I mean, I think there's been a lot of confusion there. It's evolved. I think the state licensing's only been around 2 years.
correct.
The MF.
It took them 2 years to get the state licensing done with Lara, and that's why we also think this is a really good guideline that you got from the Michigan Municipal League, which compares medical marijuana and recreational marijuana.
You said Mount Clemens just opened theirs?
Oh, Mount Clemens is getting ready to.
So why don't we see what happens with them first? And then let's see how, you know, their experience with it, and then let's look into it. We haven't,
I prefer to be proactive personally. I feel like there's always discussions in East Point that we have to be creative and stop watching other cities to see what they do, because we really got to do what's right for us. And I understand the idea of sitting back and waiting, but I think that's what a lot of other communities are doing too. And I'd rather take the lead on putting some responsible regulations in place than just waiting and see how we can copy from another community.
I agree with, you know, being proactive on certain things, but when it comes to drugs or marijuana or things of that nature, I think we need to take our time with that. Now, other things with, you know, experiencing other things, but the issues of bringing drugs or anything in a community, you always want to watch what happens with another community. That's something you don't want to be proactive on. If you want to be proactive on it, teach kids to say no to drugs and go to coalitions and teach kids how to not use drugs. That's being proactive. But when you bring it into your city and your community, you want to watch how it affects other communities and other people and schools and things like that. And, you know.
I think that's what we're doing. I think we're going to look at other cities and see what's happened with them.
Yeah,
I think we're doing with other.
Well, and I concur with what Councilman Kleinfeld was saying, and I think that the decisions we would have to make now at this point, I don't think, or I should say, I think we can make without looking at other cities, like we're talking about, like where to zone them, and just we'd have to come up with like an application process for the businesses. I think these sort of things, and well, Detroit's got a very good process. I think we can come up with those sorts of things without, waiting for another city.
Well, I think I'd rather see, because they've studied this now for quite some time in Mount Clemens, and they've looked at it from many, many different things, starting with location, proximity to schools, to churches, to residential, and the cost of the license, the cost of the buildings, what has to be done to a building and everything. And she says they've lived and died and talked about marijuana, and Mr. Aiello has been out there. You've had coffee with the mayor numerous times. I'm catching up with you. I know where you're going. So I think that they've had the feedback from a lot of people, and I'd like to just at least study it a little bit before we make a final decision.
I'm totally for with having the work study in January. I'm completely okay with that. I think it's important, and that way then us and the planning commission can kind of, instead of planning even just, they might not think of something that we might think of, and when it comes to regulating these businesses, that we can have that discussion and learn, and look into other communities that have opted into the medical marijuana, and so we can improve if they have had issues, so we don't have the same issues. So
Could we plan on at this meeting then giving some sort of guidance to planning on zoning? Maybe Mr. Albright, if you could come up with what decisions we'd need to make regarding the planning commission, at least we can push them forward. Because I think the decisions we have to make aren't, they're not necessarily complicated, it's just complex. I think there's like a lot of pieces to this, and just want to make sure we
I think
move.
some of them can get really complicated. As an example, if you're growing in your basement and you don't own that house, what kind of restrictions is your land? Do you have to notify your landlord? I don't think we have anything like that in our legal.
Is this regarding medical marijuana?
Yeah.
Recreational marijuana?
Both. Well, one is 10 plants, one is 12 plants.
Well, but we can't regulate on home growing in that regard.
Well, they are in various cities because it's destroying the housing structure. So how many houses do you?
I don't know, Mr.
I
Albright?
think maybe if you're thinking about if a person is a caregiver, but if it's just somebody who's just using it for personal use, the city really is preempted by state law from regulating that. You have to look to state law to see what the requirements are.
As an event of the medical marijuana, correct. If they're in their own home, and that was one of the problems that's coming up with some of the cities. Are you in your own home? If your landlord owns the home, does he have to be notified, or does he have to give us permission that you're gonna grow some in his basement?
Yeah, what I will do is I will circulate Mount Clemens' proposed ordinance along with some other communities, and then extract out of there some highlights that the city should consider, which those various ordinances cover.
And I think also from this guideline that we got from MML, there's a great deal in it. It's a great resource, and I think if you're gonna consider that.
I wanted to just also mention a couple of things that I sort of wanted to respond to and heard a little bit into the discussion up here. First, I fully expect that we would say so far from a school and so far from a church type thing. And I don't think, for one, Detroit was pushing them out of the center city. One, they have a ton of churches down there and a few schools. I think that is what was available. I also think the reason they popped up there is because communities north of 8 Mile were saying no, and they're trying to get closer to that market of residents who don't really have anywhere else to go. I think, listen, revenue is not a consideration for me, because if the state finds a way to calculate the revenue in a wonky way and keep it from us, they will. So I'm not holding my breath on that. For me, the main concern is safety and making sure that there's a safe place that residents, not just our own, but anyone in the surrounding community can go and get like a product that's not grown in somebody's basement. I want to discourage that. One of my main concerns is the amount of fires we've had. Perhaps we can look at whether or not we can regulate what's up to code wise, because I do have a fear of people setting up lamps or lights or something like that and burning down the house. I think for seniors, because I've heard a number of them, we had a few last meeting that use medical marijuana for appetite or pain or whatever. I don't want to send them to Detroit. Some of them don't like getting on Gratiot because it's hard to drive. 8 Mile is out of control sometimes. So there's just a lot of reasons. I also don't want anyone, I want that black market to whittle down, because if you go to the weed man and he's on the corner, he's also got opioids or narcotics. And if you go to a store, there's one legal product that's, medically tested and safe. And I just wanted to respond to some of those points. I think that's all I have.
I wanted to make a comment before we leave. I do not want to just keep saying Detroit, Detroit. I don't want to go over Detroit. I'm from Detroit, and it's a lot of people that live in East Point that used to live in Detroit. So we don't want to talk bad on a city so much about going across 8 Mile, because I don't like how that sounds as a community. Because it's kids that live in Detroit that go to the school, people that live in Detroit that work in these schools. So saying going to Detroit, crossing 8 Mile, if you don't like what's going on, across that border, then you might not like if it's going to come here. Because those same people that go to those businesses in Detroit, they're going to come here. So you can't just say, I don't want to go to Detroit. If you need medical marijuana and it's that important to you, why not go right across the street? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you go across the street? If it's not a safe, if you're saying those facilities are safe, why can't you go right across the street to that facility? I'm not understanding that. So I don't want us to get into the nature of talking down on other communities that surround us, because we might need their resources, and I don't want them to look at us and say, well, Detroit is this and that. So I want us to not get into that, culture of talking about.
I didn't mean
back and forth with not just you. I'm just talking about the, the residents. I want us to, because even the young lady said earlier, one of the residents said that something about color. At first, they didn't want certain darker complexions over here, and now we're being hypocritical. So all that history and things like that, we need to try to stop it and stop saying Detroit this and crossing 8 Mile, because that's where I'm from. And so now I'm here trying to build the city up. So let's kind of stay on topic on how to go forward.
I'd also like to look at, and Mr. Rurab, you'd probably have to give us this information on the medical marijuana cards. How are they dispensed? I came across this ad in this little yellow magazine that's at all the restaurants. And it says they will do a discreet and safe delivery of medical marijuana directly to your home. And it says that if you don't have a card, they'll get a card for you. So maybe you can find that out. And then the other thing that I think we need to include in a session is there was one recommendation in this book that talks about canines, police canines, that they're trained to recognize it, and they were recommending in this to get rid of police canines. And I thought police canines were also trained just for drugs completely, and it's cocaine and marijuana and opioids and so forth. And I've seen them in airports as well. So I'm wondering what effect it has with the dogs that we utilize.
It shouldn't have any effect, because marijuana has a distinct odor, same as cocaine. It has it's hard to describe, but it's it is a sweet. You look at a cloud, you say fluffy. You smell cocaine. It's like a chalky smell. It smells like chalk. And the dogs are trained. They train at least once a week, and certain items that contain that certain smell. Same thing with marijuana. I had one question. Hookah lounges. They've been a lot of problems with surrounding cities for years with fights and violence. How do we control businesses in town that want to open up a hookah-type business, but they're able to smoke marijuana within the building because they're out of public view? Have we ever addressed that or talked about that?
Well, we've certainly had our problem, and I think we controlled it, but it was just through police action. We've never really done an ordinance on it.
Yeah, I don't think this provisioning center would operate at all like a hookah lounge, because I don't think you can consume the product on site. And if you can, then I would put it in the ordinance that you can't, so.
But that
It's
might
just
be
something to
something else
think
we'd like
about.
to include in
I
it,
just
whatever
wanted to throw
ordinance
that
we
in.
do.
Because once you let one person in, then somebody else is gonna come up with a genius idea, and where do you stop it? And that's why I wanted to bring that point up, so.
Madam Mayor, also, I think it's very important that, everyone knows that we're not just gonna let, everyone open marijuana businesses. We're gonna limit how many we open, and it's gonna be licensed. So even in a facility like that, we're gonna have ultimately probably multiple applicants that are gonna be applying for these licenses. And if it was a hookah lounge that were us applying for one, in my opinion, we probably wouldn't permit that business.
And it's worth mentioning that some licenses, like transportation, can never have any marijuana on their premises. So as far as I'm concerned, I really don't have too much of a problem with that.
And so then, yeah, I'd like to say a few things too, Madam Mayor, and I guess back to what you said, Councilwoman Owens, Detroit. I hate hearing anything negative too about Detroit here. That I get a little angry when I hear that at the hearing of the public. To be honest, I think the city is doing a great job trying to fix any issues it has, and I really enjoy Detroit. I work in Detroit, but. Also, I appreciate everyone coming out and speaking this week and last week. I am actually glad to hear some opposed this week. There were a lot more for last week and some against this week. But I just, I appreciate this because I want to make sure I have all my bases covered too for when you bring up a specific issue. I want to make sure I've thought about it because, of course, I don't want to see the businesses too close to schools, just like we're saying. If we do have, like Pastor Rush, you mentioned, we did have quite a few liquor stores sold to minors. I think we need to stop by more often, for sure, it sounds like, and I would err on the side of doing that more often than having marijuana businesses also, because we don't want kids getting it. But also, of course, there is the time where kids get it right now. So allowing the businesses into the city is not going to prevent people from getting it outside of that avenue. So I think this actually helps prevent a black market, because if people can just go buy it at a store safely, less people, I think, are going to try and access it other ways. And also, I think one of the biggest things for me is in all of this is how many people have been in jail for a little bit of marijuana, and this is more Proposal 1 than medical marijuana businesses. I think this is going to help that, and it's a whole separate thing than the opioid crisis. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. There's plenty of studies out there. So I think this is all positive, and I think when people voted yes for Proposal 1, I know few people maybe said it today. They might have voted no, though. You can't say, or I don't think most of them said yes to Proposal 1, but not yes to having just not in my town, though. Don't have businesses in my town. So there's that. And someone mentioned driving high and drunk now. That is still going to be super illegal. It's still illegal. I really don't hope to see that either. No one's, liquor stores get you know, robbed once in a while or things like that. Nobody's pushing to get rid of all liquor stores in the city. Crime is going to happen here, there. It happens everywhere. It's not like East Point's some special case. That's why all of these cities that are doing this, they have a whole plan for security. There's security plans. You got to submit a whole plan for how you're securing your building. So I don't think, I mean, the PD I don't think is going to be stretched thin for this. I mean, I want to ride along with the police. We never once stopped at a liquor store that night for a specific incident. There were no incidents that night at a liquor store, but we did have someone with some narcotic paraphernalia at one point in the city. So I don't think, I don't think all the liquor stores are spreading the PD thin, so I don't think it would happen with marijuana. And I think from the beginning also, I said this wasn't about money. Like I think Councilman Kleinfeld said, the state will probably try to keep it all if they can. I don't want to make this about money. I think for us, we can fill in a few businesses. We have some vacant businesses. I think that is a really big pro to this also. And I think we've discussed everything else I wanted to say, so thanks, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Monique, did you have something in addition for council reports?
Just that I believe this Saturday at the Recreation, at the East Point Manor, they're having a senior citizen holiday Christmas party. So if you guys enjoy being with the seniors and having some fun with them, I would love to see you guys there this upcoming Saturday. Also, we had the 4-H program that we do at the middle school. We had our third meeting yesterday at the middle school, and the kids really enjoyed themselves. We had the Army Reserve right here on 9 Mile. They came out and brought a sergeant and taught the kids about the military and how important it is to serve your country and things like that. And so we're going to go to the Military Museum this Saturday for them to actually see certain things and learn some more things. So I really appreciate that the superintendent and the principal let us use the middle school to influence the kids. We had kids that weren't even part of 4-H peeking in, trying to see what it was all about. The sergeant came, Sergeant Stevens. He came out, did some push-ups, and did some exercises I couldn't even do with the kids, but I tried anyway. And it was a really positive, positive thing that we did with the school. So, so if anybody want to help out with that 4-H program, it's a lot of work. When you're dealing with other people's kids, trust me, it's a lot of work because a lot of parents don't have time to, be with their kids. And sometimes they need our help, with raising their kids. And so I really need, if you guys not doing nothing, we do it second and fourth Mondays at the middle school. I would love to see some male figures there. Sometimes it's always predominantly a lot of moms at these events. When these kids see male figures there, it really, takes effect because these young boys need to see some male figures in their lives. So, just contact me, go to my email, and just be a part of your community, not just recreational marijuana ways and things like that. We have a lot of stuff, coming into the community. We just need help with that because I can't do it by myself. It's a lot of work. All of the council, we do different things for the community, and we cannot do it alone. We all have jobs, families, and things like that, and in order to build the city up, we need, we got the pastors in the audience that help with that, city manager, the attorney, and residents, Geneva Early and Dunya, and these coalitions that we are doing our best to build the city up. But when you go to these coalitions, it's like 4 or 5 people there, and it's 32,000 people in the city. So, we need more people to come out. Whether you not live in the city, it's nice that you want to build a business in the city, but it's nice that you have some type of foundation first with the city before you come with a business. We would like to get to know you before you bring a business here. We would like to see that you're helping with these programs before you bring your business here. How have you helped the city before recreational marijuana came? So we would like to know those things as well. And I just think also with the recreational marijuana, a lot of people say how it would be an asset to our city, being like everybody else. But what if we didn't have it like everybody else? How would that be an asset to move to a city that don't have certain things like every other city, that would be an asset too. I would love to move to a city that don't have all this type of entertainment. I can move my kids there and have great education, no drugs around and certain things. That's the asset to me. So it depends on what your asset of goals is for your family, you know, things like that, that you want to bring to a city or move to. And I just think that will be one thing. And so I'm done, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Sarah?
First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I do appreciate hearing everyone's opinions. I definitely want to, you know, I agree with the mayor. We need to take our time. We need to plan this out. I want this to be not a disaster. I want to make sure that this is a successful venture that we're moving forward with. And that's all I have for this evening.
Mr. Kleinfeld?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out. Are we really doing like comments right now, or are we?
I must accidentally transition.
Yeah, he did it all by himself, so I thought, well, let's just go down the road.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if we need to motion to do a workshop or just have them scheduled, but I have nothing else comment-wise.
You want a motion?
That would be better, otherwise we have to go through the procedure in the charter to call a special meeting. It's better if everyone agrees at one time, then we try and figure out a way to do it at a later time.
Mr. Kleinfeld, would you like to make the motion, please?
I will make a motion to schedule a special meeting on December 3rd.
January.
January 3rd. Is it 7 p.m.?
Okay, right, well, before we do that, though, I think there is gonna be other things on the planning commission's agenda next month.
There probably will be.
You have 2 items, I think. So you want to do it at 6?
That's what I'm wondering, if we could just do it at
6 o'clock would be fine. I'll let the planner know.
Or we could do it the following week. Let's do it at 6.
Let's do it, yeah.
All right.
All right, and I'll make that my motion.
Is that all right with the chairman of the planning commission?
I can't speak for the rest of the commission.
I guess
Well, we can, yeah.
All right.
as long
Can we
as
get
it works for
support,
the planning
please?
commission, 6 p.m.
So you, did you make your motion?
Yes, he made it. We
Yes.
support.
Did you support it?
Sure. I will support.
All right, please call that roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
And Mr. Kleinfeld, did you have other comments?
No, thank you.
All right, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night is our Parks Commission meeting. There's apparently still a lot of people that don't realize that besides RARE, we've established a Parks Commission, and that Parks Commission meeting is going to be at 7 o'clock. And under new business, they're going to be talking about Memorial Park, the concession and the restroom building, and the recreation master plan, and then they're also going to elect officers. And then, so I think that that's a really good thing. We still need a couple applicants. Ms. Owens was talking about getting people involved. We need somebody to apply for the beautification position and on Board of Review.
Zoning Board of Appeals, desperately.
And we also need 2 people on the DDA. So for the DDA, if you have a business in the downtown area, I think, or a businessman, those are the 2 qualifications that we need still on the DDA. So my comment is I still have my cast on, and so if you haven't seen me around at all the meetings, it's because this cast is getting heavy. I have exactly 1 week and 5 days before I get it off, and I'll be able to walk with a cane and not the walker. So that's the end of my story tonight. Thank you so much to everybody that came forward, whether you're for or against. It's great to get the opinion of everybody that's within our community. It's not everybody, but we've had a really good representation from them. We've also had a number of letters and letter emails and phone calls and people stopping wherever you are. So it's always good to hear from everybody, and we'll move on from there. And I invite you all to come back to that planning commission meeting as well, and you can express your opinion, pro or con, or what's happening at that time. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support?
Move and support it, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Or Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.